All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Kite Veil channel. Thanks for tuning in once more. Listen, I will get to the other Asian countries as well, but right now, my main focus is China right now, as we having some big time problems with homeless youth. Now, you know how I am with the homeless here in America, but when you have a lot of homeless youth in the cities in China that are the biggest and growing, like Shenzhou, that's an issue. Let's tune in. Let's go into movie mode. Shall we? Let's go.
In Dongguan City, Guangdong Province, China, a group of young men and women reside under an underpass. They survive on basic meals, sprawled on the ground, some engaging in activities like live streaming on their phones or dancing spontaneously.
Get it, girl.
In a video, auxiliary police can be seen inspecting the area and speaking to the group.
See, what I never understood about this was when local law enforcement run these people out, where are they going? They're going to find another public space to get ran out of by law enforcement once again. So it's kind of like a domino effect.
But the youths completely ignore them. The streets of Shenzhen are filled with homeless youths. The Chinese Communist government often claims
When I see this shit, it feels like it hits right back home here in the Bay Area. That's what this shit looks like.
that the United States is riddled with homelessness while China is not. These young people starkly contradict the party's narrative. No one desires an uncomfortable life. If given a choice, who would willingly sleep on the streets or under bridges?
Ooh.
In Guangzhou, a job fair scene shows a massive crowd looking for employment. Yet,
Halt. In my youngin' years, look, during the first recession, well, not the first recession, but the first housing crisis back in 2008, I was only like 20 years old back then. And even I was struggling to find decent employment, let alone full-time employment. I was in and out of part-time jobs, retail mostly. Hold on one second. Yeah, retail mostly, and odd warehouse jobs. I was in and out of all kind of odd jobs with temporary agencies to staff for employment. It was just a crazy time for me. And what I'm saying is these job fairs and career fairs, it was a waste of time at the time because I've actually never gotten any of those jobs. When I went to job fairs and brought my resumes, I never heard back from none of them people. I even called them and bugged the hell out of them. Nothing. So let's see how it goes for them there.
no recruiters are present.
What?
The companies have essentially given up. This is the reality. The unemployment rate among young Chinese has approached 50%.
50% of people unemployed among young. Damn, I don't even think the numbers are that high here in America. Damn.
Jobs are scarce, and while those with retired parents in their city can rely on them for support, rural youths without such support find themselves jobless and join the ranks of the homeless, barely surviving in corners of the city. For many, there is no home to return to. Here is a rural village in the northern mountains of Henan province, captured on camera by a migrant worker returning.
You know, I didn't even study the rural parts of these countries, but it looks like we're touching down because this is the third video that I touched down on where you heard them say themselves that a lot of these young people are relying on their parents' income. So if it wasn't for them having parents, they'll be on the streets. And I'm assuming that these people come from the less fortunate. Those have to be a lot of those people coming from the rural areas, going to the city for higher hopes, which isn't panning out.
Home. The desolation is heartbreaking, and it is truly a home one cannot return to. In cities that cannot retain them and homes they cannot return to, countless individuals struggle painfully under the pressure of survival. These rural elderly, still laboring physically, have no pensions or medical insurance.
Oh, my bad.
They must work every day to live. Sick and without money for treatment, they have no choice but to await death or take their own lives. The Chinese government often boasts about extending social securities to rural areas.
If I'm not mistaken, China is the second largest country behind Russia. Because when you look at all these other countries, the United States is small. But look at these government facilities, so large.
Claiming 170 million farmers now receive pensions. But how much do they actually receive each month?
Not much.
In 2020, the average monthly pension in rural China was less than 24 US dollars. Urban pensions covered retirees from state-owned enterprises and public institutions, yet rural pensions are a fraction of those, sometimes amounting to nothing. Currently, the minimum standard pension for urban and rural residents in China is 123 yuan per month, and this is only for those who have paid into Social Security, who
Damn.
can live on 123 yuan. Therefore, the elderly who still can work have
He
to
has
take
one
on the
leg.
dirtiest, hardest,
Now see that if he has one leg and he's still working, a lot of people have two legs and they still lazy as fuck. So, in America, we let a lot of our youngins end up being lazy and we don't correct them on the problem. But this man is out here hustling on one leg. I never seen this. Or at least I never seen this in America.
and most dangerous jobs to support their families. This gray-haired migrant worker squeezes into a narrow concrete pipe,
What the?
a sight that's suffocating just to watch.
Man.
Who would risk their life like this if they weren't forced by the need to survive? According to estimates, there are nearly 300 million migrant workers in China. Their average monthly wage ranges from 525 to 722 US dollars, far below the national average. Due to the household registration system, they and their children often lack access to public services like healthcare and education, and most are not covered by the national pension or disability.
And then let's just face it, in China, it's just too many damn people. It's just like India, too many people. When you look at footage of Indian cities, there's just people damn near trampling on everybody. It's just too many people.
Insurance plans. When these workers lose their factory jobs during economic downturns, they are not included in the official unemployment statistics. Thus, the actual number of unemployed and impoverished people in China is far higher than official figures suggest. The banned documentary, 30 Years of Labor, was written by Associate Professor Chu Fenxian of Anhui Normal University after distributing 2,500 questionnaires and interviewing 200 people. The report shows that 60.7% of migrant workers have to work until they can't work anymore. Some argue that if middle-aged people can work so hard, why don't the homeless youths find jobs,
Whoa.
even as delivery workers? Hasn't there been broadcasted claims that delivery jobs can earn a lot? Let's take a look at the weekly pay of a delivery worker.
跑了7天单，
It's really disgusting. We had a new guy at our station. He's been running deliveries for 7 days. And when I saw his paycheck today, it was just atrocious. Let me show you. He only worked 7 days because he started at the end of the month. He did 195 orders, averaging over 20 a day since he's a newbie. Then they deducted 34 yuan for insurance, 280 yuan for materials, stuff he had to buy when he joined, like a storage box, helmet, and uniform. I think those materials are quite expensive. They took 267 yuan for accommodations since he stays in our station's dorm. He doesn't have his own bike, so he uses the stations, and they deducted 594 yuan for the bike and battery rental. It's probably a monthly charge. Adding it all up, they deducted a total of 1,175 yuan. And his salary? It was only 1,263 yuan in total. So for his
damn.
first 7 days, he actually took home only 97 yuan. That's
They
just
robbed
over a
him.
dozen yuan a day. He runs for at least 9 hours a day, earning just about 1 or 2 yuan per hour.
Nah.
With such earnings, can one afford to eat? A 28-year-old delivery worker, while delivering food,
And see, these are all manual labor jobs. Understand something. When it comes to the dating dynamic and finding a partner, a lifetime partner, till death does its part, which most likely it won't as far as the relationship goes, understand that in this generation, I feel like we're forgetting about the people that actually keep the world going on, like repaving the roads, electricians, construction, and all that, because everybody's aiming towards the tech factor and working in these luxury high rises. And those people forget about the people that are working to keep their internet connection and electricity on, because a lot of those people are looked down on. So while you going to these fancy schools getting all this education and everything, you got to remember that the hardworking blue collar people are important too. Not just you and your little fancy job title in your little luxury office or cubicle. That's what most people are forgetting about. Even here in America, everybody's working from home while you have these people climbing up on lines, reattaching wires and stuff to keep your electricity going. And see, it's stupid to look down upon at them because those people make big bucks just like you. If anything, they're probably making more than you, and they're part of a union. Your little luxury office job is not union. They could get rid of you any time. A lot of you guys are walking out in boxes just like this. You guys have no say so and can't fight in the office or have an argument about anything because they'll push your ass out the door real fast. You have no representation at your job in those white collar jobs. Labor unions are for manual workers, the workers that keep countries, cities, counties, you name it.
Accidentally crashed into a roadside guardrail,
Oh no.
bleeding profusely. Passers-by called for emergency assistance, and by the time the ambulance arrived, he had already begun to convulse unconsciously. The doctor lifted him into an ambulance and rushed to the nearest hospital. The delivery worker, barely conscious, was still worried about the undelivered order. He feared that his day's efforts would be wasted if he couldn't complete this delivery on.
Now that's dedication right there. This man is damn near dying from a crash and he's worried about the delivery. Mind you, he's more important. His life is more valuable than the product he was delivering. That's real dedication. If that was me, it'd be the other way around, but hey.
On time. The doctor had to contact the customer for him. Only after hearing that the customer wouldn't complain did the delivery worker finally fall into a deep sleep. At the hospital, the doctor suggested a comprehensive examination to check for internal bleeding. However, the delivery worker told the doctor, "I've just arrived in Guangzhou and don't have much money. There's no need." There are young people living under bridges and sleeping on the streets. Elderly people in rural areas in their 80s and 90s still working in the fields. And middle-aged migrant workers in cities risking their lives for money. Do they not desire a better life?
And these people always stay slim. See, these people, they're not like what you see. You don't see a lot of Rasputas there, even though they're there, but they're not there. Not like how they are in America. Because see, we're so entitled, we complain about everything. We wake up complaining. See, a lot of Americans are professional complainers. And it's very toxic. I don't like to be around complaining ass people. I remove myself from those environments. Peace is key.
It is poverty that restricts their options. According to the poverty line set for China by the World Bank, headquartered in Washington, D.C., over 40% of the population are categorized as living in extreme poverty, while 80% are considered poor.
Damn.
Data indicates that nationwide, over 800 million people are in debt, with 420 million at risk of default. Credit card delinquencies have exceeded 200 billion yuan. There are more than 8.61 million default.
Sounds like American problems. So how different is China than America, other than the communist bullshit?
A number that continues to rise. The total personal debt has reached 350 trillion yuan, averaging 140,000 yuan per person. In China today, with unemployment rates soaring, 85% of families earn less than 50,000 yuan a year. Many families don't even have 1,000 yuan in liquid assets, let alone savings. Data from the International Monetary Fund, based in Washington, D.C., shows that the GDP per capita in the U.S. is $85,300 US, while China's is only $13,100 US, ranking 74th globally, below countries like Mexico, Kazakhstan, and Malaysia. The Chinese government claims that only 0.04% of the population lives below the poverty line. However, the poverty line used by the Chinese government is much lower compared to the international standards. Based on 2010 prices, the official poverty line in China is an annual income of 2,300 yuan, about $340 US, which is well below the World Bank's international poverty line of $1.90 per day. In fact, in 2021, 47% of the population in China lived on $10 US or less per day. If using the US poverty line from 1960, which is $21.7 per day, 80 to 90% of the population in China today would be considered poor.
Damn.
Moreover, the income disparity between urban and rural areas in China is substantial, with rural residents earning 80% more than the rural counterparts. Averaging incomes mask the vast number of people in dire poverty in rural areas. Previously, whenever poverty was mentioned, people would think,
Damn. I mean, I know they're in poverty, but that's skills right there. Look like they're in the Olympics. They work harder in the rural areas, if you notice. I mean, it's kind of like back home in the States. The West Coast and the East Coast have the most money, right? Because the Rust Belt, Sun Belt states, there's not a lot of money. And like in the central part of America, not Central America, I'm sorry, the central states in America, there's not a lot of money out there. It's mainly manufacturer jobs, factory jobs. And those places don't, I mean, some of them pay a lot. They used to pay a lot. They got rid of the high seniority people to get the younger people in there and pay them less money in the factories. So there's not a lot of money going around in states like Wyoming, Montana, Indiana, places like that. There ain't no money there. I mean, you could get a job, but it ain't that good. Not unless you're in tech, right? So let's
think of remote mountain areas. 3 years ago, the Chinese government blatantly announced that all poor populations have been lifted out of poverty. In other words, from then on, China no longer had any poor people. In 2021, CCP leader Xi Jinping declared that all 99 million rural poor people in China have been lifted out of poverty. 832 poverty-stricken counties removed their poverty labels. 128,000 poor villages were delisted. 3 years have passed. Now let's follow the lens of Chinese netizens in 2024 to see the real situation of poverty alleviation in mountainous areas. In the Danliang Mountains of Sichuan, one of China's poorest regions, a man working in public welfare shares. You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it with your own eyes. It's hard to believe there are still people living in such poverty. The scenes before me are heart-wrenching.
Poverty's not going anywhere. A lot of people are a paycheck away from being in poverty. Now, when it goes back to being homeless, in America, you don't see a lot of homeless children on the streets. It's mostly middle-aged people that are homeless in America, right? But as time goes on, things change with time, right? And as you can see, we have these children. They look down to earth.
The children here live in extreme poverty. They lack adequate clothing and food, and access to quality education is non-existent. The social media user notes, despite their poverty, they too have dreams and hopes for the future. In China, who hasn't had dreams in their youth? Yet the solidification of social classes has already determined that these children have no future. Like most Chinese, they are condemned to be sacrifices of the regime. Some say, but aren't there a great many golden phoenixes that have flown out of the mountain valleys? Haven't many of them become China's middle class? It's true, during the reform and opening up years, foreign companies and internet businesses rapidly developed, enabling many educated and capable individuals to accumulate wealth through high salaries and incomes. This facilitated the entry into the middle class, including those from impoverished backgrounds. But are these people still doing well now? In recent years, due to China's real estate market, stock market, and other exploitive schemes, these people's assets have long been diluted to nothing. They are burdened with massive debts, becoming the most tragically impoverished group. Despite the CCP's deliberate choice of a lower poverty line to claim significant reductions in poverty, the reality is that even by the party's own standards, over 80% of the population had long been impoverished. There's a saying that has become popular now. The wealthy die by trust, the middle class by leverage, and the poor by P2P lending. You might believe your assets are secure, but Big Brother has been watching you for a long time.
That's right.
They always find a way to turn your money into theirs. To them, you're merely a resource to be exploited.
That's what these young people need to learn here. Your assets aren't guaranteed. A lot of people look at their assets as a safety net when really anything could get tampered with and taken. So the thing is to keep going and hope nobody tampers with your earnings.
Investors say the A-share market is China's biggest casino. Homeowners lament that being tricked into mortgages to buy homes is the biggest scam.
America.
In China, there are 200 million stock investors passing down the stock market baton for over 30 years, often losing everything. With 400 million mortgage slaves, in just a few years, they find themselves trapped in the abyss of housing loans. If you believe stock investors lack skill because of their financial performance, consider BlackRock, a prominent global fund management firm known for its top traders. While they often achieve annual returns of 50% in the US stock market, their experience in China's A-share market has been less successful, leading to their abrupt dismissal of their China region head. Before departing, the executive famously remarked on the A-share market, "You can't buy enough. You think you're purchasing stocks, but what's actually being sold is the company." When companies in China go public, it's not for growing, but instead for cashing out, selling off the company. That is to say, the A-share market is not an investment market, but a financing market.
You start a new company, after a few years, you sell it.
For the Chinese government, where investors' money is used to solve various problems. According to statistics, over the past 8 years, the CCP has extracted 20 trillion yuan from the stock market through various taxes and fees. This includes 1.5 trillion from the stamp duty, 1.8 trillion from brokerage fees, 2.8 trillion from new stock issues, 3.3.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. As always, next time.
Thank you.